So there we go. That's done. Next, I've got to be real with you. There is a way that the jailer could have been so much cooler, and we're looking at it right now. So I fucking love this progenitor jailer bot thing. I think it looks really like mournful and creepy.
Yeah.
You know, like, nope, can't mention an FF14 character. But look, it looks mournful. It looks creepy and unsettling. And also, it's not a big, angry buff dude. Like, if this was the ultimate villain, and, you know, I just think him being the ultimate villain, like, literally looking like this, I think it would have been so much cooler and honestly so much more menacing.
Yeah.
You know, I think it really would have been than just, you know, just a default standard, like, look at me, boom, I did my Thanos armor transformation.
Yeah.
There's just something a bit darker with this guy.
Yeah, it's so much more sympathetic and characterful overall.
It's like, yeah, imagine, you know, his voice is more, because you know those villains, there's a movie I love, it's called The Witch, and I know a lot of people maybe The Witch, because it's the two V's.
Oh yeah, so I thought it was a Y instead of an I.
But I love The Witch, and not to spoil anything, but let's just say you'll know if you've seen the movie. There's a certain character who's represented obviously by the goats that are in that movie. Is it Black Pete is the name of the goat? And there is a. So I don't want to do a full spoiler, but you know, obviously, who do witches serve? Maybe one of the characters that people would have thought a witch would serve is sort of floating around there.
And the Black Goat.
The way, I mean, people know the way that character is voiced. Black Phillip, even, yeah. The way that character is voiced, it is so like, you know, it's not like it's far more. It's soft and alluring and almost a bit sexy. Yeah. And that's what makes it so deeply unsettling and sinister.
Yeah.
So, you know, imagine if the jailer, you know, maybe he can't even move.
Yeah, a little bit of Wizard of Oz vibes, like Man Behind the Curtain kind of stuff.
Like, imagine if the jailer has been essentially, you know, his body's been deactivated and his mind has been trapped in this, and all that he can do is whisper. You know, it could look so cool, so menacing. And could really lend a lot of his character, like, you know, empathy and intrigue by default, which is like what he does not have right now.
Yeah. Also, that sounds very familiar, because what other character was unable to move and had to spread his influence through
the Lich King.
Yeah, the Lich King. So that would have been a really cool allegory, but instead he has to walk around and not really do anything much.
Oh, people are saying Jin from League.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting that
I was going for Lucifer, by the way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's one of the things. Obviously, when you look at villains historically for like really classical stories, which obviously I've been doing a lot of research into recently for reasons people might know, but Lucifer specifically, very much the, you know, I guess an anti-villain in some senses. Not really, because becomes a bastard, but, you know, has always been charismatic, has always been the kind of, they'll convince you you're doing right when you're doing wrong. I mean, that's the whole thing about it, but yeah.
Voxels just said, imagine it was voiced by Silco's VA. Yeah, Silco and Arcane. I could see that. And, you know, it's that sort of thing. It's like, there's just something more sad. Like, if this is how Zoval's kin dealt with him, you'd be like, whoa, okay, there's more going on here. There's like more of a darkness to what the other Eternals did. Yeah. I thought it would have been so much more interesting. So I really like this design. I think it's really cool.
Yep. It does, however, pose some problems to the story logistically.
Yay!
And you know me, I love my logistic holes in World of Warcraft storytelling.
That's a happy boy.
Bastard. Yeah.
So, you know, hey, artists, you did a great job designing that. I just think it's really eerie and menacing. So, yes, so some people believe this is a prototype version of the Jailer, akin to the other prototypes of the Eternals that we see in the raid, in one of the raid encounters. Other people, though, think that this could be a Zoval post-defeat, since he already has the domination runes inscribed over his body and the hole cut into his chest, which, I mean, you wouldn't think that would have happened to the template of the jailer, because it was all those domination runes and, you know, the hole being ripped out of the chest. That is how that character was, you know, imprisoned, right?
Yeah, it was the Primus himself carved the runes into his flesh.
So I guess option one then is that this is the jailer dead or defeated.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he loses all of his energy and this is actually what you get.
Yeah.
So he maybe returns to this sort of soulless form and looks very sad. Option two then. The Primus tested his domination magic on a prototype of Zoval before doing the real thing.
Yeah.
Now from Wowhead, quote, as there's little evidence of the other Covenant leaders ever visiting Zereth Mortis before 9.2, much less having the ability to manipulate the machines that contained therein.
So that
doesn't seem like
basically means option 2 is off the table. But option 2 is also the only way that we understand that this could not be Zoval. Because the Primus carved the runes himself.
Yeah.
Possibly. But anyway.
Option 3 then.
Yeah.
The first ones were testing pre-dominated Zovals because they're the ones who masterminded, you know, just the general setup of the universe. And they were trying to write fate and all of that.
Yes, so I definitely...
there's large hints towards this.
Yeah, I definitely took a big logical leap by going from they were testing pre-dominated Zovals to they're writing fate itself, but I did at least have my reasoning there.
So your hints then. So large hints towards this throughout the expansion, such as the purpose, the prophecy of the Maw Walker, and the true Maw Walker. The enlightened telling us in Zereth Mortis that, quote, the sacred words foretold our arrival.
Yep.
Are we all part of the plan?
We seem to be.
This is where the man himself comes in. Kingdoms of Amalur. And that whole universe, working with your man, was R.I. Salvatore, was overseen by none other than Mr. Steve Denuser as creative director. And that whole thing is all about being fateless.
Yeah.
It muses fairly lightly on the notion of determinism and the player character's role in all of that. So basically combine the Song of Creation ideas with those of determinism, and perhaps the pattern the jailer speaks of is preordained.
The one that we, according to our title, if we kill him in Mythic, we are guardians of the pattern. So. Oh, also the one thing I should also say.
He's coming in here with friggin' references in the data mining.
Yeah,
shit.
Yeah, the one other thing that really triggered this to me specifically about the Kingdoms of Amalur thing isn't just fit and fitlessness, but it's also the way that they refer to it, because he's talking about fractal geometry, but it comes down to the pattern. In Amalur, it was all the fit weaver. It was a tapestry that was woven that was fit. And you, as the Fatalist, were able to unravel it and redirect threads and stuff like that. So I can see a substantial amount of parallels. But obviously, like, full disclaimer on this, Denuser was the creative director on Kingdoms of Amalur and the MMO universe that they were building. But he had no official credit writing for Amalur. So this is all just me putting 2 and 2 together. Might not be because of that, but...
I wanna. If I ever get an interview with Steve again, which maybe is debatable, but I'd want to know
after this year,
what is his preferred answer, his preferred sort of way of thinking about the double slit experiment. You know, is he there in team, Everett interpretation, which is Everett many worlds, or is he more in say another school, like the Copenhagen sort of interpretation? Does he think that really the result of the double slit experiment is, it's based on hidden variables that are there, so therefore he's more of a straight determinism thing?
Yeah.
Or is he there more sort of thing about the many worlds and the sort of philosophical, things that you could think about that? Yeah. What does Steve Denuser think about a quantum suicide thought experiment? And I think this is really important, because if this is all an unfurling fractal, what is a fractal? Well, a fractal, you code them up with some maths and away they go. And surely the whole thing with a fractal is you can zoom them forward, zoom them back. You'll always get the exact same result at every point because, it's just maths and you're following the maths. Yeah. And at any point where you look at the result of the fractal output, that's just the result of the math, at that point in time.
Yeah.
It's completely deterministic. So, how does Steve think about these things? I think that could maybe inform some of the storytelling here.
That's interesting to me. Mostly for the simple idea that if what he personally thinks is relevant, then it's interesting that his personal philosophy or idea is embedded so deeply in this, on the sense that it doesn't come across as a very philosophically written game. It's kind of like backdrop philosophy in a sense. It's kind of a moot point. It's more interesting that it's like, I guess what he personally thinks would be directly what we would expect to come out of the game, as opposed to a thought experiment of determinism versus otherwise.
So it's the sort of thing, like, how do you engage? Let's just say you believe in aspects of determinism, you know, to the point where it's like, let's just say somebody murders somebody, and you're like, well, I mean, yeah, it is their fault, but I mean, hey, determinism, that person was always going to do that. You know, it's just the sort of thing, like, if you can 100% describe something, let's just say, you know, this item, how it's sitting there at, like, you know, a fucking quantum level, can you then sort of extrapolate out everything else and then wind the clock backward and forward? It's like some of the sort of shit that people talk about. And, you know, it's like, if you have that more, let's just say, a sort of a Sam Harris style view in free will, how does that impact you as a storyteller? You know, where it maybe in that case, it's more about like, well, these characters kind of are, you know, we're guardians of the pattern, literally.
Yeah.
Things are almost happening in a preordained way. Therefore, it's more about like us watching these characters go and having empathy for them living through this reality. You know, fate is fate, but we still have to experience it.
Yeah.
Or is it more of a thing where actually, no, we have a lot of free will, and, you know, that's more, it's more about like the active decisions the characters are making. So,
Yeah. 'Cause that's what I thought.
I wonder what he thinks about these things.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say this particularly because I'm looking at one small plot detail or one small plot point, which is the threads of fate in its existence. But the way that's written is very much, hang on, things aren't behaving as they should around you. Which, if you read into that, it's obviously implied that we aren't bound. Which also seems to be the general state of things. We're not bound to how things are going. We are definitely outliers as far as people are concerned. As far as, you know, the other forces of the universe are concerned, we're outliers, and everything in Azeroth is an outlier. We're the only ones that survived the Burning Legion as step one, which means there's something special about us, which I think is kind of, which is where the Fateless stuff from Amalur comes into my head, where I think that we're being told we're part of this grand fate and this grand pattern. So I find it weird that we're going to ultimately guard it when all of the, like, I guess all of the plot hints and philosophy hints to me read exactly as, no, you Azerothian, especially considering we can engage with the first one stuff, and the jailer was really taken aback by that, then that implies that we're special. But if we're special because we're chosen one, versus special that we're the unchosen one in a way, it's kind of weird.
It's like we don't have a place in the plan, and that's what gives us agency.
Yes.
Which then is fun because so far all of our agency has done is help our enemies, which certainly feeds us back into being more of a fatalistic thing.
Yeah.
I will say, sorry for the few people who communicated having a little bit of an existential dread. I appreciate that these are all, you know, odd things to think about.
Yep.
But I mean, as they say, it is what it is.
That's what it was. Thanks, Michael, for saying.
You legend.
Elisan said fate and time around us, eddied around us, and none of the futures she saw accounted for. That was the other thing that I had in my head. That was a very clear lead from that point into this about us being fateless and
Michael,
us
well done.
not being involved in the pattern. So thank you for that.
Yo, I think there's a video on this, man.
Obviously, certain there's
a video, or at least a podcast.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Yeah. Cool. Interesting. I don't know what else to do. What makes us unique? You know, that all remember the Shuhalo stuff from the Embrace, or is it? No, it's from Thingy Earth Mother.
Yeah.
Oh man. Very interesting. Then, of course, there's option 4. It's just a product of a scuffed forge, not really much intent. Or 5 artists' oversight. Maybe they didn't know it was supposed to be a pre-rune or Holes of Val, which I don't think is likely.
No, I can't imagine. There was a secret 6th option that I had in my head, but I couldn't really prepare or think about it too hard in time, which is that kind of following up on it being the product of the scuffed forge, in that I couldn't make sense of it, but the jailer trying to, well, I don't know, the jailer trying to make himself a new body, one that wasn't all runic and chest hole. But then, first of all, he learned how to use domination, so it doesn't make sense that he, you know, wouldn't want the runes. And also, it's hard to justify that they would print the same thing even if he decided to change it, because he has control over it. But that was less of a, it was more of it me trying to think of every possible reason this thing would exist. And I don't even know which one I'm leaning for at the minute, outside of probably option 1. I think that's the only one. Option 1 or option 4 are my takes, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely not going to be option 2, because that is difficult, and 3 also difficult.
Yeah, so there you go. This is stop 1 in our fun little tour of the jailer, because we are going to stop into the Taliesin station soon.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, Anthony. Maybe he's creating a new being in his own image. That would make sense if he created those as, because he wants everyone to serve him and be him. He's the outlier to all of this stuff. So that would make sense that he was creating what the remade reality looks like. It's just we all look a little bit like sad robot him, which is a bad reality.